and I was with my best friend, who is also a female of the same age. We have been best friends since elementary school, and we always try to spend all of our free time with one another. We have had numerous creepy encounters that I someday plan to share on another sub. I think this particular encounter is a better fit for this sub, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Now that that's out of the way, this is what happened. When my friend Kelly got out of school today, we planned on going to a local swimming area and hiking the nearby trails. It's usually pretty secluded at said swimming area, and we were actually the only people there upon arriving. I have never felt unsafe there. When we reached our destination, we got out of her van, locked the doors, and began to stroll through the woody trails. As we hiked, we chatted about what is currently going on in our everyday lives, like we normally do. We weren't very familiar with the particular trail we were walking on, and we were curious to see where it led. We walked for quite a while until we reached what we thought was just a clearing. It was actually just another body of water, and where our trail came to a halt. When we realized we could do a U-turn and walk on the mushy sand bordering the water all the way back to where her van was parked, rather than cutting back through the woods, that's what we decided to do, and I'm so thankful for that decision. We continued our chat as we walked back toward her vehicle. The walk was lengthy, but it wasn't until we were already almost back that we heard someone in the woods next to us. Just to quickly clarify our surroundings, the woods were to our left and the water was on the right. Straight ahead was the swimming area and Kelly's vehicle. We could hear a male's voice, but his words were jumbling together. We couldn't make out what exactly he was saying. We sped up a little, simply because we were completely secluded from civilization. It was only Kelly, myself, and whoever was in the woods beside us. I had my phone to my side in case I needed to call for help. It was a huge comfort, to say the least. We tried to stay quiet as we walked around the bend where her van was parked. We began to hear multiple male voices as we crept toward her van. We soon realized there was a small car parked right beside hers, and there were 3 men surrounding it, all on different sides. We watched as a 4th man exited the trail Kelly and I first hiked through. We immediately knew he was the one we had been hearing in the woods. All of the men were different ages. 3 of them were very obviously older men, and the other one looked to be around 30 years old. When they noticed us, they quickly silenced themselves and began to stare. At this point, I was ready to sprint to her car. I tried convincing myself that I was overreacting, as I suffer with anxiety and usually overthink things. I mean, what's weird about 4 grown men hanging around a swimming area with no fishing poles, wearing normal clothes, staring right at us, and surrounding my friend's vehicle? When we finally reached her van, my heart was pounding. They never stopped looking at us, and we were only around 7 feet away from them. If they had wanted to do anything, here was their chance. My friend opened her door and, of course, began having trouble unlocking the passenger side door. Just my luck. I stood impatiently by the passenger side door, praying to hear the unlock sound. I kept checking behind myself in fear that they would sneak up behind me. And to my horror, that's exactly what one of the men was doing. This man was the one who had been in the woods next to us. He was approaching her vehicle very quickly. The door finally unlocked at this moment, and I flung the door open, practically throwing myself inside. He passed her vehicle, and we locked the doors. Then we noped the heck away from there. As I watched in the rear-view mirror, their eyes never left our direction. We parked, hidden, of course, to see what their next move was going to be. It was only a moment after we left that they did too. On our way back to my house, Kelly confided in me that the man who had been approaching me was holding something in his hand as he crept up behind me. What it was, I'm not sure, and I think I would rather not figure it out. It's terrifying to think of what may have happened had Kelly and I went back the way we had came. We would have met this man face to face in the woods, and no one else would have been around. I'm really not sure what these guys' intentions were, but I would rather not meet them again to find out. 2. I was about 12 or 13 years old. One time I'm walking to my psychiatrist for my weekly appointment. It's a half-hour walk and after dark. I enjoyed walking, especially after dark when things were quiet, peaceful, and slow and no one else around. No, I didn't live in a dangerous neighborhood, nor did my walk take me through any dangerous neighborhoods. As I'm about halfway to my destination, a car, a Cadillac, comes driving down the street. Some people, both male and female, in the car are sticking themselves halfway out the windows and are taunting me and jeering me as they drive by. A bunch of people in their late teens or early 20s. I ignore them and keep on walking. About a minute or two later, the same car comes down the street again, and those people are jeering me and taunting me again. I don't know who they are. Maybe they live in the neighborhood. I still ignore them and keep walking. Another minute or so goes by, and again they come driving down the street, taunting and jeering me. Now I'm worried. They're circling the block over and over, deliberately focusing on me. As soon as they reach the corner, they make their turn and are out of sight. I duck behind some bushes in someone's front yard and wait. The car comes again down the street, this time not seeing me walking down the street. They're not cheering. They pass right by me in my hiding place and turn the corner. They think I've finally reached my destination. One of the houses on the block and went inside and as a result drove away. I thought wrong. Stupidly, I leave my hiding place and go back to walking on my way to my psychiatrist. I should have stayed there behind those bushes much longer, because I can hear the car approaching. They spot me and start taunting and cheering me again. They turn the corner. This time I run towards my destination, but I know I won't get far before the car and those kids catch up with me again. So to that effect, I decided to hide again, behind the bushes in front of an apartment building. This time resolving to stay there for good until the thugs in the car give up their searching for me. I'm hiding there behind the bushes for not long. Maybe about 30 seconds or so, when the guy whose apartment it is pops out from his apartment, asking what I'm doing in his bushes. At first, he probably thinks I'm a burglar or something, but I explain to him how I'm walking to my psychiatrist and how I'm being followed and harassed by a bunch of kids in a car, which is why I'm hiding in his bushes. The guy can instantly tell from the tone of my voice and my facial expressions that I'm telling him the truth. He can see how scared I am. Just then the car comes down the street and pulls right up at the curb directly in front of us. They look at me and the guy I'm with. Not a mean-looking guy. In his late 30s, early 40s, but tough and serious-looking enough. He's not wearing a shirt, but he's wearing a sleeveless undershirt which reveals that this guy's upper body is very well toned, slightly muscular, and no fat. I'm looking at the car and I realize that it's missing a few people inside. The car doesn't look so full now. The guy I'm with just gives him a mean stare. He asks me, "You know them?" I explain that no, I don't know them at all. I haven't the slightest idea of who they are. Just then, as the car is sitting there, about 3 of them approach, walking from the other direction. The car was traveling east to west. Those 3 were walking on foot from west to east. So that's why the car seemed not so full. They were looking to escalate the situation. They weren't satisfied with just driving by and taunting me. They changed tactics. A few of them got out of the car, up ahead, and started walking towards me, while the ones in the car took another turn around the block. Their plan was now to physically trap me in between themselves and their car, perhaps grab me and drag me into their car with them for whatever reasons. But seeing my tough guy guardian angel and me, the kids walking towards the car instead got in the car and it took off. The guy offered to stay with me for a little longer, or if I wanted to duck into his apartment to stay there until I was sure it was safe to continue on my journey. I had a feeling that this was the last I was going to see of those guys and their car, and I didn't want to be late for my appointment. So I thanked the guy for his offer, but declined, and decided to head on my way. The guy went back into his apartment and closed the door. I looked at the closed door and hoped that I didn't make a mistake by turning down the guy's offer of better safety, because I was still scared. Thankfully, I was right about not seeing the car again. The rest of my walk, I was unmolested. I reached my psychiatrist's office. I told my therapist about what happened. He insisted on calling the police. The police came and took a report from me. That's the last I heard of it. On my way back home, I usually took the same route that I came from, up the same streets. But this evening, I varied my way home, taking some side streets to walk on. Never saw that car or those thugs again. 3. The following happened back when I was 15 years old. Like quite a few people, I was pretty badly bullied during my high school years, and found my solace online, safely tucked behind a computer screen. One day after school, both my parents and my elder brothers had gone out, so I decided to make the most of the space by putting my legs up on the sofa and aimlessly clicking away on YouTube and a social networking site I'd been told about. You could edit your profile page, say what movies, music and books you liked, and all of the usual about me stuff. There was a section called Meet Me, where, you guessed it, you could click yes or no on profiles that you wanted to essentially meet up with, or just chat to. I ended up clicking on a guy, Ben. To sum his profile up, he was a metalhead. He liked all of the bands I liked, same movies, TV shows, everything. Also, his picture wasn't hard on the eyes at all. He reminded me of Chad Kroeger, but with long, frizzy, curly brown hair. To top it off, he lived in the same city as I did. He saw that I clicked yes on him and sent me a message. He seemed friendly enough, and stuck with asking me how I was and how my day went. We then started talking about different bands, and he went on about all of the shows he had been to. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversations, and quickly grew attached to him, having never met him or even seen him in a video chat. He would give me little nicknames and would even say that he would beat up my bullies. He told me that he liked me a lot and would often ask me to send him pictures. Nothing crude. He just said he wanted to see my smile. I didn't want to say no to him because the last thing I wanted was the positive attention he was giving me to be taken away. So I sent him pictures. Some of the time I would try to look more appealing and would try to pose like most of the girls in my school. I was naturally flattered, having someone compliment the features that I was constantly put down for, and it would be a lie to say that I wasn't smitten by him. That is, until one night. I logged into my MSN and an offline message popped up that took the air right out of my lungs. I felt instantly cold as I continued to read Ben's message. It said, "Hey babe, I couldn't control myself and had to come see you today. Please don't get mad. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable, so I just stood at the black gates waiting to see you leave. I'll be home later tonight." I realized my mistake instantly. In some of the pictures that I had sent him, I was in my school uniform. I tried to rationalize it any way I could and failed. I told him that I wasn't ready to meet up with him on more than one occasion, and that nagging voice in the back of my mind was going mental. What if he didn't just stop at seeing me at school? What if he decided he wanted to wait until I was alone, so he followed me down a back road on my way home? What if he knew where I lived? I thought about telling my parents, asking them for help, but I pushed that thought away instantly. I hadn't told anyone about Ben. I didn't want to get yet another internet safety conversation from my mum, or have my stepdad take away my laptop or phone for being an idiot. I tried to push it to the back of my mind as I got changed and ate with my family, avoiding anyone's gaze out of fear of being asked how my day went, and them instantly realizing something was wrong by the tone of my voice. After a very long dinner, I went back to my room, opened up my laptop, and logged back into MSN. He was online. I asked him what he meant by his last message, and he brushed it off like it was no big deal. He called me silly when I told him that I didn't like the idea of him being there. He was silent for a few moments, and then replied with, "But I love you. Don't you love me?" I didn't know what to say. All of a sudden, I was nervous and scared to talk to someone who had cheered me up on so many occasions. Maybe I was just overthinking it. I mean, I did like him after all. But I'd made it clear from the start that I didn't want to meet. I thought it would be best if I stopped talking to him while I gathered my thoughts. The next few weeks were odd to say the least. Since deciding, I hadn't logged into any of the social networking sites I had him on, and I started walking half of the way home with my older brother, telling him that I just felt like a change. He called me a weirdo, but that was nothing new. After a few days of not talking to Ben, I began to notice things outside of my front door. One night, a flower from one of the plants in the garden had been placed on the welcome mat. The next, a chalk heart had been drawn. I started panicking. It wasn't long until my mum started asking questions. I was so scared that he would do something more, so I logged into a different site that my online friends had told me about before. I spoke to one of them and mentioned the little gifts that were being left outside. They immediately told me to call the police. But that would mean that my parents would find out, and like I've said, I was young and stupid. Things kept happening for a few more weeks and it slowly escalated. I would see him. At least I thought it was him. He never tried to speak to me directly, but I'd see him outside of my school on the other side of the road. He would wave and I would look away and quickly catch up to my brother. One night, I had my art club after school. I was enjoying myself so much in the art studio that I had forgotten all about the past few months. After it was finished, I headed to the gates, stopping just inside to peek my head out, looking for him. Relief washed over me as I saw empty streets. I stepped out and started my walk home, stopping off at the shop to buy myself a drink and a few sweets for after dinner. Once I had gotten to the park at the bottom of my street, I glanced around and saw him yet again. Only this time, he was heading straight for me. I froze for a second before running up the hill towards my house. He called my name and told me to stop and talk to him. As I got closer to my house, I noticed that my stepdad's car wasn't on the driveway. My heart dropped then and there. While I was running, I reached into the front pocket of my bag and fumbled around for my keys, all the while listening to his footsteps as he followed behind me. I got onto my garden, slamming the gate closed behind me before grabbing the door handle. It was unlocked. I ran straight in and shoved my key in the lock, turning it. I didn't stop. Instead, I went into the kitchen and locked my back door. Ben started banging on the door. I sat on the floor in front of it, using myself to hold it shut. My eldest brother, hearing all of the commotion, came downstairs looking pissed. He asked me what the hell was going on, and I broke down in floods of tears, telling him everything that had happened. I told him it was my fault, and while I sat there and cried, my brother did what I should have at the start of it all. He called the police, and dispatch heard the commotion as well and assured us that someone was on their way to our house. The police came and took Ben away. I gave them a statement and received a lecture from both parents and my brothers. I was told that the police had sorted things and I wouldn't be hearing from Ben anymore. I was so relieved. We ended up moving house, and it wasn't until I turned 19 that I was told what really happened. Ben was not my age. He was not the boy in the pictures. Ben was a 30-year-old man that was arrested for having a collection of child pornography. They seized his computer and found out that I wasn't the only one that he was talking to. There were multiple pictures of girls and boys. Now I am almost 23 years old, and I am very cautious of what I do online. I no longer visit any social networking sites, and I am always on the lookout for signs of this behavior with my new young brothers.